Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about tankless water heaters because again, the winter is here. So you have to understand this one core aspect. It's a need, it's not a luxury product, it's a need. And you have to understand why water is such a hassle for us is that water is a great thermal conductor, meaning we use water to conduct heat away. So it is really good for that. On top of that, that itself would not be that bad. It also has high specific heat capacity. What does that mean? That simply means it will take lot of joules to raise its temperature from 1 Celsius to another Celsius, meaning it's like 10 degrees Celsius to 11 degrees Celsius. It's gonna take lot of it. And on general fluids that most people are aware of, this has the highest, meaning there is no other fluid that can absorb more heat than this puppy on normal day-to-day life. So you have to understand, meaning if you are exposed to 10 degrees Celsius air, it's gonna be bad. But if you are exposed to 10 degrees Celsius water, you're very close to dead. Like fundamentally, even trained people will get hypothermia. You have to understand that like 10 degrees Celsius air is completely different than 10 degrees Celsius water. So water is very brutal for us. And that's why hot water becomes a necessity at cold times. Now, India, even though you may think like India is a hot country, it is hot. It does get like 50 degrees Celsius hot, but it does get cold also. And like especially in Delhi, it gets ludicrously cold, almost like 4 or 5 degrees Celsius cold. We don't have snow, but it does get cold. And at that point in time, water is dangerous. If we directly use it, we could injure ourselves. So you have to understand, it's a must for survival and all that. Like that was the third thing that Indians started to use. The first thing we had water pumps. Second thing, electrical wise, was lighting. Third thing was water heaters. So there is a need for it. It's a very important necessity. So the first tool that we utilize is immersion rods. You must have seen this sort of thing. It allows us to heat bucket water. Works perfectly well. It's a very low cost option, meaning it barely costs 2000 rupees. And it's very good for mobile people, meaning if you're moving from A to B, this is amazing. This just works. And what kind of performance we can get out of this? Generally, if you're buying a good one, you can get 20 liters of water in 45 minutes to 75 degrees Celsius. And that will starting temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. So it's a good delta V that you can get, and good amount of water. That's more than good. Generally, we heat it up, then have another normal water, then mix both of them, then get 2 waters of heated waters. So that's how we generally use it. Now, be mindful, there is a one inverse weird aspect of it is that the higher the wattage capacity, the less energy it takes to heat water. It's like, wait a minute, how the heck that happened? That does not make any sense. Well, you have to understand, if you are heating water, like in an exposed container, water is interacting with everything. Like the wall is not insulated that well. So everything is conducting heat away. Now, if you take, let's say, instead of 45 minutes, you take 70 minutes to heat, which you will happen to you if you are using 1 kilowatt heater. If you are using 1.5 kilowatt heater, that's the 45 minutes. So it radiates the heat away. Now, again, it's happening in 1500 watts also. It's also happening in 1000, but only difference is 1000 will take much longer. So it has much more time to radiate away, meaning it's radiating for 70 minutes rather than 40 minutes. So fundamentally, it dumps more heat. So again, the difference in unit consumption will be like 1 unit for one, another would be 1.05 watt, 5 unit. So little bit extra unit is consumed. So generally, it's better to get as high power as possible. Now you have to be mindful, these puppies are heavy power drain. So is your plug, socket, all those puppies are rated for that current and amperage continuously, because that's another aspect. Many things draw a lot of power, but they draw it for very short duration. It does not matter too much to your plugs, electricals, and all that jazz. But these puppy can run for minutes to hours. So in those sort of scenarios, you have to be mindful that your plug can handle that sustained load. And nowadays, like back in the days, we just had like, that's it, that's the heater, you put it in there, everything is up to you. Nowadays, we have a lot of functionality. Like this is the most advanced version I have seen. It also has the third prong, that is a temperature sensor prong, meaning you set it to low, medium, or high. Low is 50 degrees Celsius, medium is like somewhere in 60s, high is like 75 degrees Celsius. That will allow you to set it and forget it. Back in the old days, like if we forget it, we would actually evaporate all the water. Like it was brutal. But back in the days, we used to use metal buckets. So buckets was safe, but this always fried itself. Nowadays, we'll no longer have to worry about that. That technology is there. And again, the without thermal cutout is still available. Generally, don't buy it. Buy one that has thermal cutout to have better peace of mind and less energy wastage. So that immersion rod is the step 1 of tankless system. It's like use it on spot, get it does take time, but it does work. And again, if you do not need 75 degrees, you can get moderately useful water temperature quite easily, quite quickly also. Then we come to the tankless water heater. It's the new fab everybody is talking about. And it's also, we call it by point of use heaters, meaning if you have water sink in your kitchen, you just put it on top of it. If you have a basically shower, you'll put next to it. If you have a water basin, you can put also below it. So these things are generally put where you need to use it. Now, they have no storage, meaning they do not just heat up the water and keep it for later use. They consume, basically if you're consuming only, then it's heating. So it's sold as a product that saves energy. While it is true in one sense, it is not true in another sense. I'll explain that in the next video when I go deep into why tank wars is better. But you have to understand, there is no waiting for hot water, and that people love, especially if you are living in a household that has big pipings. For example, in my upper floor, to get water from, let's say, hot water tank to where I have sink, it could take like 1 whole minute. So it's inconvenient, not 1 whole minute, but you get the point. It takes time. And again, in winter, you have to like cold water, cold water, cold water. Okay, now hot water, now I'll do this. So it is something that many people don't prefer. So if you have this, the water, the moment you turn on the tap, the sensor detects it, the water is flowing, it turns on the heater, and it has so much heating capacity that it actually heats up flowing water stream, and then voila, only little bit of water you get cold, and then voila, you have hot water. Now, it does take a lot of electrical power, meaning even small puppies that you can buy. The smallest puppy I have seen is 3 kilowatts of electrical energy. That's a lot of power. That's compared to my water tank system, it's much higher capacity. And the one that can actually do good flow, like, you know, a lot of water flowing through it, that could be like 5 kilowatt or something like this, could be easily 8 kilowatt. So you have to understand, they consume electrical power like there is no tomorrow. Another aspect, high water flow is not happening with this. Like a storage tank, you utilize the benefit of time. Basically, you let water heat up. Even with a small heating rod of like, let's say 500 watts, you can let it heat up. Like, let's say overnight, heat the whole water up. Let's say 200-liter water tank, and then in day utilize it. Utilize with any flow that you want, unless you completely drain it. And in drainage, you will not directly get cold water. You will get moderately, moderate temperature water. Hot water, moderate water, then cold water happens. So by the time you detect that you are getting moderate water, is the time you have to stop. It's like, okay, finish everything up, then just like, okay. Now some electrical systems are so powerful that it can overwhelm that scenario, but generally it's not advised. Why create such a big load? And you have such a large tank, utilize it well enough and you won't have to worry about it. But here in this sort of system, flow is always the weak link, especially in the one that is like 3 kilowatts kind of power range. If you open the tap full, you're not going to get a lot of water, and especially if your starting water temperature is very low, you're not going to get 40 or 50 degrees Celsius water. That's like optimistically. Realistically, that I have provided the video down below. This person is testing it out and is barely getting 40 degrees Celsius water. So again, for many people, it's like 30 degrees Celsius water in winter is okay. 40 desirable. 50 is like good. 50 is good. Like in some scenarios, if you have to wash utensils, you may prefer even hotter water. But again, at that point in time, this will break down, or you have to buy that has ludicrously high power electrical, because heating flowing water is very difficult. Very, very difficult. So that's the tankless water heater system. And there are gas options that do work very quickly, but again, they are literally using fire. So that's why I'm talking about this electrical system. Now, you have to understand the physics aspect of it first. Now, water takes a lot of energy to heat up, no matter what you do with it. We can add additives to just shift it. We can add additives that allows it to not freeze in very low temperature. We can add additive that does not allow it to boil at very low temperatures. We can do that. Like we can shift like this 0 to 100 degrees, we can shift it. But we cannot change this. So be very mindful. Water takes a lot of energy to heat up. You cannot deal with this. Like you cannot cheat it. There is no magical new technology that will allow you to cheat that. That's fact. Another aspect, what does heaters have? Like whatever heaters, like you have this heater, or even if you are making your own heater, what does these things have? These things have what we call delta C, meaning it's gonna consume energy, and that energy consumed is gonna increase the water temperature to X amount. That is the delta, meaning let's say delta is 20 degrees C. So meaning if you put 10 degrees Celsius water, you'll get 30 degrees Celsius water. If you put 20 degrees Celsius, it's gonna boost that to 40 degrees Celsius. If it's 20 degrees C, it does not matter what input temperature is this, it's just gonna add that. That's it. Now, if you have low, it's not going to boost it to higher temperature. All it's going to do is just like, hey, I only added this much on it. Now, how do you get hotter water if the incoming water is cold? You have to basically accept you're going to get low temperature output, or you have to consume more power or for longer. Meaning, that's why if like immersion rods have thermal cutout, they will wait for water to heat up to that point. Instead of consuming, let's say, 1 unit of electricity, it may consume 1.2 units of electricity to, like, raise that extra temperature if input water temperature was very low. There is no way around it. You have to consume the power, or you have to wait. Basically, you're still consuming power. It's just like in an instant or like over long duration. You have to do that. And if you need water to heat up like instantaneously, like I open the tap, voila, like I'm doing a full fresh bath with it, yeah, you're gonna need a lot of kilowatts. Basically 3 kilowatt is a very medium use. Like mild use, someone is like cautious with water, more than good enough. 5 kilowatt mild flow, more than enough, people will be happy with that. 8 kilowatt is that point where it's like, yeah, at this point in time, if you are having issues, what the hell you're doing with water, man? That is 8 kilowatt. Now be sure these things put such a surge load that your house wiring is good enough, because be mindful, they have very few things. Even in India, like where I'm running like air condition on top of air condition, we barely have single appliance that draw that kind of power. Like nothing draws, like our jet pump does not draw that kind of power. Our like basically air conditioner doesn't. There's no single appliance that could draw that kind of power. So you could have a scenario where your house electrical load would be equivalent to this device running. Because again, if you want running water to heat up to desirable temperature, say bye bye to your power draw. Your power draw will go stupid. Grand total power consumed may be lower, but the oomph, the power draw that it will pull, it may literally overheat your transformer in winter, especially if everybody else in your neighborhood starts to do that. So how do we use it? How do we utilize this sort of technology? Well, you have to understand there is no magic in heating water. You have to understand water is not magic. You cannot like, oh, this product is amazing. No, there is no magic in water heating. And you must know all the data of the water. There are 3 core data. If you don't have these 3 data, nothing is gonna satisfy you. First thing, what is the starting temperature? Meaning, are you feeding in 5 degrees Celsius water? Are you feeding in 20 degrees Celsius water? You have to know that, because if you're like, hey, this person bought this heater and it's like, I'm getting this much energy efficiency and all that, and you are not getting it, there is a very good chance that person may have a different starting temperature. Because be mindful, heaters are kind of dumb technology. We know how this works. So nobody is generally trying to cheat you. So if you are having issues, you have to figure out what is the starting temperature. Another aspect, this directly affects the longevity and applicability of all the technologies. What is the water hardness? If your water is causing this to your equipment, nothing will survive. Flat out nothing. Like this could literally reach a point where it's like, is a running cost for you. Oh yeah, the heater broke. Okay. People do that. Many times people have to have, if they have really hard water, especially if they are using a deep bore well, it is a common issue. And you have to understand why the heck it breaks. Like what the heck is there that is breaking? Because it's physically intact. Why the heck it breaks? You have to understand there is a niobium wire. Now that wire could withstand, let's say, temperature of 500 degrees. Let's just say the engineer would have designed in that way that it reaches 500 degrees, then it radiates all the heat away to the ceramics. Ceramic is the electrical insulator, okay? And ceramic heats up, evens the heat out, then it goes to the generally copper or steel pipe, and that pipe dumps final heat into the water. So there is a heat flow. Now once you have that scaling buildup, it's like putting blankets on the heater. So copper is like, okay, I can't dump the heat. Okay, copper is no longer able to dump the heat into water efficiently enough. It's still dumping it, but let's say the dumping was like 100%. Now it's barely able to dump 30%. At that point in time, the inside ceramic starts to heat up. That applies pressure, and the niobium wire that is inside, that heats up even more, and it finally breaks, because not only there is pressure, there is also high temperature failure. That's why it looks physically intact, but it's broken in the inside. So you have to understand, if you have hard water, nothing can save your equipment. Invest into a water softener if you have a lot of equipments, or if you have only one equipment that gets affected by it, just have a way of dealing with it regularly. And then the flow rate. Like this sort of equipment is becoming very popular in India. These are very low cost, 1,000 rupees equipment that's supposed to heat up the water. They're useless if you open the tap fully up. You have to know that. Like they have 3 kilowatt of energy consumption. So a lot of power. But again, to have any chance of actually utilizing it and have decent water, you have to have tap running very slowly. Otherwise, it's not gonna do. So many times you see too much negative review, there is a very good chance it's only happening because of wrong expectations. Meaning somebody is like, hey, this is tankless system, why the heck I'm not able to bath like I used to? Yeah, if you do that, there is a very good chance, even though your electrical unit consumption will be low, the amp consumption would be so high that you might damage the wiring in your house. It can be done. It's just there is a reason we don't do it every time. And especially if you have hard water, most time people say flat out don't. If you have very hard water, don't even look into tankless system. And missing information, because like again, if people think like this is a magic, again, sellers will try to do you that, but that's why I'm making this video. It's like you have to understand there is no magic into this. If you have missing information, what is the inlet temperature, what is the flow rate, liters per minute, don't expect miracles to happen. You have to be mindful of that, and you have to understand. Being mindful is the only way to save money. There is no alternative. It's like, I'm going to use this technology, it's going to save money. I can guarantee you it will not. Many times people fall for this trap where they have water tank, and water tank have this benefit. The water goes from hot water, like the water temperature you set, then it goes to medium, moderate temperature, then it drops to cold, ambient water. So that means the time people reaches to that ambient, and they're like psychologically aware, okay, water has stopped, let me just finish up and done. Every time they have like running water that's just continuously hot, many times they don't stop bathing. They could be bathing in winter for 20 minutes or 40 minutes. At that point in time, you are burning far more money than you have realized, even though you bought a technology that's supposed to save money. So be mindful. Mindfulness is the only way you can save money. If you're aware, if you're mindful about things, you can have comfortable life while not burning a hole in your pocket. So that's the only way to use this sort of technology efficiently. So this was my presentation on tankless water heaters. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please hit the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.